Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome back to the Modernize or Die podcast, the CFML News Edition. It's March 17th, 2020, and we both get pinched because we're not wearing green for St. Paddy's Day.
Oh, dang it. I've been so concerned with coronavirus, I didn't even remember it was St. Patrick's Day. We're the only podcast who hasn't died yet. We're still alive.
Yeah, but we've got the current...
Wait a minute. Do our green screens not count, even though they don't look green to our viewers?
I guess they do, so we're off the hook.
We both have a wall of green behind us in real life.
Yep. Okay, well, I'm Gavin Pickin, software consultant for Ortus Solutions, and you are Brad Wood.
I'm Brad Wood. I'm the remaining coronavirus member of my family who hasn't died. I don't know what I do at Ortus, Gavin. All I know is I'm alive and I'm here.
Yeah, well, I have influenza A, not coronavirus. Thankfully.
You have the partial plague, not the full plague.
Yeah, exactly. I a little scared when the urgent care called up to say they had results, because like, uh-oh. But yeah, so obviously that's big news for everybody else. We're going to try and give you some other news, some other things to be thinking about and take your mind off things. So first, we just want to thank our sponsor, Ortus Solutions. And so one of the things Ortus Solutions does is do trainings, and one of the best things about Ortus Solutions is we do online trainings. So at a time like this, we can't obviously go on site and do trainings with our usual customers, but we do offer online trainings as well. So I know you do quite a lot of those, Brad.
I do. I said do. Sorry. It is true. I do a lot of the virtual online trainings we do at Ortus, and a lot of times just for teams that don't want to pay the extra for travel, or they want to be able to work it better into their schedules. Or sometimes I do it with remote teams that it would be like physically impossible for us all to get together because they all work remotely in the first place. So we do it via Zoom, distribute the materials via digital means, PDF, and then we just use screen share, and we learn all the same stuff. It's not quite as fun as being in a physical classroom, but we do it a lot and it works really well. So
yeah, and obviously we offer a lot of things, and the big thing is get trained by the actual makers of ColdBox, commandBox, CastBox, ContentBox, and all the other box products. So yeah, so we have a lot of great materials online, and if you guys are looking for online training, think of Ortus. We can definitely help you with that. We even do like intro ColdFusion training too, so we have materials for that as well. So thank you, Ortus Solutions, for sponsoring this podcast and making it a possibility. And we also want to thank the Patreon supporters. We're at 39% of our mark for being fully funded on the Modernize or Die podcast. So all of your help there is greatly appreciated. And we have a blog post out on the Ortus Solutions saying we need your help, talking about what the Patreon support does and how it helps, and how you can help us as well. So thank you to Patreon supporters for making this possible. Okay, so let's get into the news and events. So
speaking of news, this just in.
Just
James
in.
Moberg is talking about a new release. Oh, look, right here it is on Twitter 12 minutes ago.
Yep.
Dang. Breaking news, folks. You heard it here first.
Well, maybe on on Twitter, but yeah. So the big thing is that CF 2018 and 2016 have updates, and there is no security patch for CF 11, but there is a actual a guide in the knowledge base on how to do that yourself, since it's no longer under support. So we're going to add that to the show notes along with the normal updates. But it does have security vulnerability fixes. The updates are also available in Docker as well. And so that's ColdFusion 2018 release update 8 and update 14 for 2016. So
this also means I need to go holler at John Clausen if he hasn't already seen it and be like, time for some new ForgeBox engines.
Yep.
Get these babies in the command box.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is not automated like Lucy is.
Yeah, unfortunately. So those updates just came out, so definitely check them out if you're on it. There's a security update, and that is APSB 20-16. James Moberg just said hopefully it fixes the same site cookie bug. hopefully. I'm not
Same
sure
site
yet.
cookies. Didn't you just put the ticket in for those same site cookies like just a week ago, James? Oh wait, no, it was years ago, wasn't it?
Exactly. So, um, next on our list, obviously the COVID-19 or coronavirus is affecting ColdFusion conferences. So for those of you who missed it, Adobe CF Summit East has been canceled, along with the certification program that Adobe was offering after the conference, and then Ortus's pre-conference workshop has been canceled too. Into the Box is being reevaluated right now. We're working on basically what our options are given the current situation, and we're looking at making a full announcement with the new setup. So we're going to be offering this content online if not possible in person, and obviously the further things go, it looks like the online version will be the way we'll be moving, but we'll have all the information there for you very soon. So we'll be updating and giving you that as soon as we can. So hopefully by next week we should have more information. Yeah, things are a little crazy, but we also saw something up on Slack. So Michael Nat, is it?
Yeah.
Basically about CF Camp, that they're planning on October, November, but with the current situation, they can't they can't proceed with any planning. So at
And the
this
problem
time,
is he basically has to get into some hard costs that he can't get back, like right now, without really knowing what it's going to look like. Um, so his original date of May or something is now, I think, falling inside of that window of the recommended, like, you shouldn't meet with 50 people or more or whatever. But
yeah,
it's hard for him to say with certainty that even by the end of the year that things won't still be a little crazy. So
yeah, I know they said they were happy that they didn't do it in May because it would have been a big miss, but I know that,
yeah,
like they need liability insurance and all this stuff, and right now no one's willing to do anything about anything. So, so basically, Adobe's CF Summit in Vegas, we had dates that were released, but they haven't confirmed them. They haven't actually made an official release because of all of this as well. So basically, all online conferences might go ahead, all in-person conferences at this point are basically waiting for more information. So just so you know. But with that being said, there's a bazillion webinars coming up. So today, Tuesday, March 17th, since we can't go out and celebrate St. Paddy's Day like we usually do,
the
John
big
Farrar.
parade's canceled here in Kansas City.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that they're shutting down bars and nightclubs and everything in California, and a lot of different things going on. But so John Farrar is actually having a webinar today at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, and it's titled ColdFusion Community Education 2020 and Beyond. So basically it's a webinar talking about all the different technology and things are changing, and sort of trying to figure out what we should do as a community to keep up to date and move forward. So he's got some ideas and wants some feedback and to get people together to try and set up a community education platform for ColdFusion. So that is tonight, March 17th. I'm going to put the link into the chat here as well, and we'll try and get these show notes out as soon as possible for those who want to attend. But I think if you go to SoSensible, so SoSensible.webinarninja.com, you should be able to find him. He's also on the Facebook groups, and he's online on Twitter as well. So the next one up is the Seattle ColdFusion user group is going online too.
Crazy people. March 18th, so that's basically tomorrow.
Yep.
6 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's like they're going to define Pacific time. It's a specific time, Gavin. They're define their goals and objectives for 2020 user group. So they'll be looking for ideas, volunteers, and presenters. So if you live in the Seattle area,
it's all online though, so you can
True.
contribute.
If you live anywhere with an internet connection, you too can live in the Seattle area.
Yep. So the meetup group has a Zoom link to be able to go check that out. So if you guys are interested in, joining another ColdFusion user group, now is the time, as it's all online. But we also have a webinar on Thursday, so we're a busy week this week. So the Adobe with Carasoft are putting on Adobe webinar with. It's Adobe ColdFusion and for the next decade, all about the buzzworthy ColdFusion 2020 by Rex Sheaf. So we're doing an online
Interesting.
presentation. So I think it's based on the one he did, I think in January, but he's probably going to release a little more information about things in the alpha. And so if you guys are on the pre-release program, you would have seen some of this already. But if you haven't, if you're not on it, I would definitely check it out. There's some interesting things there. And a lot of people at the roadshows had questions about things, so this will go into more detail. So that is going to be Thursday, March 19th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be online, and there's a link I'll post for this, so you guys can register for that webinar. So that's 3 in 3 days. We're pretty busy this week.
Well,
And
nobody
then-
else has anything else to do since they're all working from home now, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I heard the Best Buy here in my town had a huge line before they opened today, and someone commented on Facebook that it was probably people all there to get work from home equipment.
Yeah, I'm sure of that in a few movies.
That in a few movies.
Do they even sell movies anymore? I'm not sure. Probably do.
What do you
but-
think you do when you work from home, Gavin?
I know, exactly. So Adobe has another webinar coming up, Microservices Architecture Trends and Challenges. So this is Alicia Dvorak, and that's going to be March 29th at 9 a.m. Pacific. And so this is actually a session, I believe she did it at the Dev Week up in Oakland. So there's a big festival, Dev Week or something. I know that they attended, and she said it got good feedback. And so she presented that and basically microservices, architecture challenges, and so that one will be available on March 25th. And then Fusion Reactor has one on the same day, a few hours later.
It's just like the year of the webinar.
Yep. So Fusion Reactor is going to do installing Fusion Reactor in dynamic environments.
In dynamic environments. Yes.
So you're going to be joining them for that one to correct them and add some more information.
Mikey Fluid had actually told me I could join him on one of those if I wanted to, but I told him I thought he would do a good job. But yeah, I'll probably give him some pointers. The last blog post that the Fusion Reactor guys put out, they actually asked me to proofread it first, which I appreciated. I gave him some tweaks. Everything was right, but sometimes there's little shortcuts like, you can actually do this in a single command if you use this flag and stuff. But I'm super stoked to see the Fusion Reactor guys just talking more about CommandBox and how to use it and how to install on it. And one of the reasons, at least from my understanding, is that the Fusion Reactor guys and their own internal metrics have been seeing a big jump in CommandBox usage within their Fusion Reactor user base, which I think is awesome. So more people out there are using Fusion Reactor on CommandBox, and so they're focusing on it. And so I'm just crazy excited about that.
Yeah, very cool. So we'll post the link in here. Now that my chat window is actually working again, I can do that. The first few didn't do that properly, sorry. So yeah, and then after that, Ortus has a webinar. So Michael Bourne and the CB Elasticsearch webinar will be March 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Jeez, we're such copycats. Everyone else does a webinar. Ooh, we'll do a webinar too.
Yeah, we started it.
We started it.
So yeah,
Why'd we list ourselves last?
I'm doing them in date order so you can see what's coming up in what
I
order.
see. Okay,
So,
okay.
Trying to be useful here.
Often imitated, never duplicated, or something, right?
Yep. So yeah. So the CB Elasticsearch, if you guys are doing any type of queries, you pretty much could benefit from Elasticsearch.
When Gavin says doing like queries, he's not talking Valley Girl. He means queries where you use the like keyword in SQL.
Sorry, that's a very good way to be
full text searches.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like queries all the time, like Gavin.
Yeah, I know what you mean, like Brad. Yeah, so Elasticsearch is a great tool we're using with a lot of customers, and it's really powerful, very quick, very performant. So definitely think that's worth checking out. So go check that out. More information can be found at autosolutions.com/events/webinar, and you can sign up for the webinar there and get reminders and email calendar information, etc.
Yeah.
So,
We do a lot of Elasticsearch stuff at Ortus, mostly for our clients that have just all sorts of complex sets of data they want to be able to search across and have like super fast features where people go in and run searches and they pull stuff up.
Yeah.
And it works really good. But I say that to mean that people like Michael at Ortus have a lot of experience with Elasticsearch, so
yep.
this should be pretty good.
And he's gonna be leading the workshop on that now with Into the Box. We'll see how that goes down, but he was the one supposed to be leading that workshop too.
One way or another.
Yeah, one way or the other, we'll get them to you for sure. And then another Adobe webinar. This one is Journey Through the Adobe ColdFusion Performance Monitoring Tool. So Alicia is doing that on April 9th. And that's going to be 11 a.m. Pacific. And it's all about demos, no slides.
No slides,
Start
wow.
to finish, getting through
You
it.
know, I'm all about that demos. The demos, no slides. It all kind of works. We could do that.
Yep, and so they have some simulations to sort of, basically hit different performance points, and then you can look at them in the performance monitoring tool itself, see how it looks, see how it works. And then those of you
Do you know if the performance monitoring tool, the PMT or PMT, has actually changed significantly since it first came out?
I do not know. I know that they're talking about doing some updates, but I don't know when or if that actually got completed. So
interesting. I honestly never used the stupid thing because when it came out, it didn't work on CommandBox, and I reported it. And I think like a year later, it still didn't work, and I don't even know if it works. I lost interest. I never tried it again because it took so long for it to get fixed. So I never really got into it. And so I don't know if they've actually really been like changing it, or if this is just kind of reviewing the initial features that were there from the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe you can go ask a question in that webinar.
I could maybe try it and see if this darn thing works in CommandBox now.
Yep.
It wasn't even a CommandBox specific issue. It didn't work on servlets that had an empty context path. They expected that even the root context would be a /, even though the spec allows you to have an empty string. And so the whole thing would just blow up on like a string out of bounds error or something, and it wouldn't even start. It was quite disappointing.
Yeah, sounds.
There we go.
Weird.
Mark says it works with CommandBox. Well, I should try it again. I should get back around to installing it and giving it a test. Thanks, Mark.
Yep. Okay, so anyway, hold on. He just said work. In this context, just means it'll connect and I can see traffic. He hasn't gone into depth yet. Well,
that means
more
the
than
feature's 95% done, right?
99% done.
It's good.
Yeah. Rounding error.
So darn decimal math.
Okay, so we're finally done with webinars. There are a lot of great ones out there.
That's like the most webinars we've ever had.
Yep, and Ortus is trying to do one monthly, and with the current situation, we might even step that up as well. But yeah, a lot of webinars. So let's get back to some releases. So QB, as you mentioned before, Eric uses semantic versioning, so he releases a lot of releases. So QB 7.5 or 705, 7.5 has been released, and so that has been updated. And if you look at the actual tag, because it's tagged in the GitHub, I think it does some changes. Mainly thank you to Sam Knowlton, add some code for optionally preventing duplicate joins from being added. So if your code has, query is a DSL, query builder, uses a DSL, so you can, build your queries programmatically. And so if you accidentally have 2 or 3 joins being done in different code, this will allow it to basically prevent those duplicates from making it through.
That's pretty cool.
So
I don't know what all Eric's doing with QB, but I'd say that Sam Knowlton is likely one of the people that's put the most QB stuff out in production maybe at this point. I mean, maybe I only say that because he's so vocal, but it seems like Sam's done quite a bit with QB, which is pretty cool because he finds all those little edge cases and it makes it a more solid product for sure.
Yeah, and that's why he's going to be presenting about QB into the box.
See how that works? You start using Ortus products, we make you present on them. So just, fair warning.
Yeah, well, it's always good, too, to have somebody else who's using it talk about it because, Ortus, we don't want to talk all day. We might do it all day, but we should.
I do, Gavin. I want to talk all day. But people just won't listen. I don't understand.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good to have community members, presenting their side of things and maybe some challenges and whatnot, and you get more of a honest, open, unbiased opinion if it's not coming from the Ortus team. So
unbiased.
Yeah, not sure what that is. Okay. Also, with the CommandBox 5 releases that we had, Luis has gone through and been working on the CommandBox and ContentBox Docker Images, along with John Clausen, who did a lot of great work in those. And so ContentBox Docker Image 5.0.0 is released. So
it's kind of confusing that we have like multiple things all hitting 5.0, but I'm pretty certain it's just a coincidence, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so we basically updated the versioning of the Docker images so that they make more sense. But yeah, so ContentBox Docker Image 5 is using ContentBox 4.x, Docker 2. Well, I guess it's now 5, but it was also using commandBox 5. So anyway, he's done a lot of work.
But what if we
done
added all the version numbers together and just whatever that number added up to, that was the version of the Docker image?
I don't think there's enough bytes.
Docker image 10,000.9700.58. That would be like the version.
Well, at least it would always increment, but yeah.
Because you didn't even add in like what the default Lucy version would be, what the default ColdBox version is inside of ContentBox. So many versions of things. It gets really tricky, to be honest, because people are like, wait a minute, what version of commandBox has the version of Lucy that has the version of the PDF extension? And it's like a little rabbit trail of versions.
Yeah.
There we go. Charlie says the PMT has not changed, but has indeed changed and has had updates. So that's good.
Yeah, it has not changed much, he said. Yeah,
you can share the link, Charlie, and it should show up as a moderated link I can approve if it gets blocked by the spam filter. Hopefully.
Yeah, we think we added you to the list to allow you to actually get the message in here, because before we wouldn't even get an option to approve it. So
yeah,
thanks YouTube.
Google knows best. That's spam.
Yeah.
Spam.
Okay.
Everything's a Monty Python reference.
We also had another release, so you got bored of waiting around with command
we did. Well, I just typed this into the show notes as we were talking. I haven't put out the blog post, partially because I'm a little lazy. I did this at the end of the day yesterday. So I did sneak out a commandBox 5.0.1 release, really only so it would no longer be the exact same as the Docker image. That's really the only reason. No, not really. So there's one of the big changes in commandBox 5.0 that I believe John Berquist. I work with so many people on these pull requests; they all start to like merge in my mind. That we had worked on. commandBox 5 lets you take a server start command, which normally goes through like cfconfig and environment variables and installing engines and configuring stuff, and then finally at the end of this process, it starts up the server. You can distill all of that down, put it through like a dry run, and generate just a bash file or PowerShell or command batch script if you want. That's basically just the server start. It's the end product of all that stuff commandBox does, and that lets you lock in the exact server start, the exact settings, the exact Fusion Reactor version, everything that you want. Skips all the dynamic stuff that commandBox does and says, boom, just run the start part as a shell script. And what you can do is you can actually delete commandBox at that point in time. You could get rid of commandBox. All you need is a little runwar jar. It's like 12 megs. And then you can just run your bash script and you can get like a super fast, lightweight server startup that's even faster than using commandBox on its own. And the reason we did that was to be able to like super optimize our Docker images and things of that nature. So when you warm up the Docker images now in these latest versions, it will do like a dry run of the start, and it'll lock in all those settings into that shell script, and it'll actually wipe commandBox out of the image. So our image size is down drastically, and the startup times in our images are down to just a few seconds. Because there's commandBox is basically pulled out of the way. It's used to build the start, and then we lock in that shell script. So it's some really exciting stuff. That's why we have all these Docker image releases, because they're using that feature. So as part of that, we noticed a couple additional things to kind of help make those bash scripts start better. And so that resulted in like 3 or 4 tickets for commandBox that was like, okay, let's add a little flag for this, and let's like tweak this a bit. So I went ahead and rolled that out as commandBox 5.0.1, and there's really only like 4 tickets in it. I'll put it in a blog post probably today. But other than a tab completion pull request that Matthew Clementi sent me for commandBox, the rest of them are all just some little tweaks related to that ability to turn your server start into a shell script that were really for the sole purpose of being able to bundle them in with the Docker images. So that's that latest commandBox release. If you already had the latest commandBox 5.0 release, you probably don't really care necessarily about it. Really, the 5.0.1 release was really just some tweaks for our use inside the Docker containers. But feel free to update if you want. It's almost identical. It's the same version of Lucy, and everything else inside of it. So that's that.
Cool. Okay. So, next on the list, we have a reminder for State of the CF Union survey. Please do it. Please share it. It's very important for everybody to know a little more about how ColdFusion is used and the tools we're using, especially for people like us who make the tools, so we can help make sure we make the right tools and put time and energy into those tools. So,
I reached out to the TerraChat guys this morning to see if I could get a count on how many people have responded, and it looks like they haven't replied yet. I only reached out about an hour ago. Last time they told me there was I don't want to say the number because I'm afraid it's going to be wrong, but it was several hundred, I think. Well, we'll try to get an update on how many people have responded to that. Obviously, we want as many as possible.
Very cool. Okay, so next on the list. Oh, by the way, if you're going to do the survey, please make sure you vote for our podcast because we'd like some feedback and some support. Because hopefully you heard about it now, so you should vote for us. And hopefully we're not as bad as Brad. Thanks. Just kidding. Okay, so in case you missed it, the Modernize/Die podcast conference edition is now on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else. You can get that on the conference.modernize/die.io website. It has a YouTube playlist as well you can link to from that site. And we released a Michael Bourne workshop episode talking about his workshop, the CB Elasticsearch. And so you can watch that on YouTube now or listen to it via podcast. And that information is still valid. As we said with Into the Box, we're planning on alternative ways to deliver it if the physical is not possible. It is leaning that way, so we'll have information on how that we can do workshops and sessions online. So, but definitely check it out and see if you'd want to find out more about the workshop.
So Michael Bourne's doing the webinar coming up on Elasticsearch, but he's also doing the Into the Box workshop. So people might be thinking, well, I don't need to go to the workshop because I could just watch the webinar, right? But the webinar is only like 45 minutes, an hour worth of content. So it's kind of like a high-level overview, kind of just getting you into it. The workshop is a full day, like a deep dive. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the cool thing about the workshop will be is you'll get a starting app, and then you're going to add CB Elasticsearch to it. So you'll learn how to add indexes and how to actually search Elasticsearch, and then output the results. And you'll have a working search app at the end of it. So he talks a little bit more about, why he should be the one teaching it, what you'll learn, what you'll come out of it with, some of the prerequisites too, like do you need to have used Solr before? The answer is no. CB Elasticsearch, the workshop will take you from 0 to hero in CB Elasticsearch. But yeah, so he talks about all of that in the little podcasts. They're not quite as long as the news ones, so you can get a bite.
But they're every bit as good, Gavin.
Oh, they're probably better. Okay, so let's talk about conferences. They're all pretty much on hold, so we'll give you back more information about Into the Box 2020, but CF Summit canceled, the pre-conference and post-conference for CF Summit East canceled. CF Summit West, we have dates, but they've not been officially confirmed yet because of probably just legal reasons with the virus and update. And then CF Camp, again, they're basically on hold until they can get more information and see how to proceed there too. They were looking at late October, November, but at this time, nothing is confirmed. Sad, but that is the way it is.
So how many of those, if any, are doing virtual online stuff?
Well, actually, Adobe did mention that they're planning to have a developer week. So those people that were going to present at Adobe CF Summit East will be presenting in a developer week format. So online webinar type format. Usually CF Developer Week, they have 1 or 2 sessions a day. So I'm not sure. That's what I've heard. Charlie actually mentioned it in his blog post, and we will mention that later in the blog post section.
All right. So it's worth noting that the in-person format is canceled, but it sounds like Adobe still plans on getting the training out in a virtual format.
Yeah, and if you go to their website, They no longer have the links in the banner to go to the registration pages, but if you look at their upcoming events, you'll see them listed there still. If you click on them, they tell you that they're basically canceled. And so I think everyone's in a holding pattern until everything sort of settles down, or at least more information's available. But I think a lot more stuff's going to go online. Like View Mastery last weekend actually provided a free weekend. So if you want to take any of their courses, they're all available for free. A lot of people are doing similar stuff for school kids. Obviously a lot of kids their schools getting closed. So they're going online. There's a lot of free services available too. And I think a lot of the online courses are basically giving people either discounted or free, or short-term free access to some of their courses to try and help with that. And I know people are stepping up with webinars. We could see that already. So I'm sure there'll be lots of great content, and we can just do some virtual networking via Zoom rooms. Ortus actually set up a little Zoom room just to hang out with, so we don't get too cabin fevered.
Zoom room.
Yep, Zoom room.
There we go. All right.
Okay, so let's look at blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So our first one here, I'm actually going to do some screen sharing for those who are watching. Starts with Ben Nadal, and he's actually been retrofitting Markdown onto 15 years of articles. So Ben's been blogging for a long time, not just recently, but a long time, and so he went through the process of using Lucy's HTML parse and then using XPath to basically take those articles that were all stored in HTML in his database and converting them over. And so he's been working on that. So it's kind of an interesting process, I think.
That is. And for anyone who's not familiar with Lucy's HTML parse function, it's actually really handy. I wish that Adobe had it. It's like XML parse, but XML parse expects like fully compliant XML. It'll puke if you have a missing ending tag or anything like that. HTML parse does the same thing and get an XML document back, but it has a really kind of loosey-goosey parser that'll put up with like extra ending divs or non-self-closing BR tags and stuff like that. So it's great when you have an HTML document that probably isn't perfectly XML compliant, because frankly, who cares about that since 2003? But you still really wish you could get it into an XML document and run XPaths on it. So the HTML parse is a super handy function. And I've used it myself for parsing through HTML.
Yeah, so that's sort of an interesting little walkthrough. And I know a lot of people are moving towards Markdown stuff as well.
Look at this. So Ben always puts the version of Lucy he's using in the blog title, which I don't know that it really matters, but whatever. That way, if he's using a brand new feature, I just noticed he mentioned 5.3.4.80. Ben's been kind of stuck on like 5.2 or something for a while. I wonder when he jumped to 5.3.4. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know he's doing. You mentioned in the blog that he's currently doing Adobe for his blog, but he's using Lucy locally to do some of this conversion and everything because he can.
He's running Adobe ColdFusion on his Ben Nadal blog.
And that's because it's hosted, and one of the hosting companies is providing that licensing for him. So I don't know if he's using Hosttech or Vivio or whoever.
All right,
out
so
there.
locally he probably just spun up commandBox 5. By the way, did we talk about the 80 release of Lucy 5.3.4?
No, I don't think we did. I know that's the one they snuck out, or is that?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, Lucy released 5.3.4.77. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the Lucy Dev forum, and I'm failing at typing and talking at the same time. They released 5.3.4.77, so that last number is the build number, as the latest stable release of Lucy. Here we go. So February 3rd. Yeah. So on February 3rd, they released 5.3.4.77, and they had the release notes and everything. And then like a couple days later. It's probably more like a week or two later. Somebody noticed. Actually, I think I noticed because I had my Lucy automation in place that just grabs the new versions and pings me on Slack every time it does it. I saw a 5.3.4.80 come across. That was not a snapshot build. It was a stable release.
You're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, and the people were like, "Whoa, what's this like .80 build? Is this a thing?" And apparently it kind of snuck out and even caught Lucy off guard. But I guess there's some fixes in there that some kind of regressions that were in the 77 build that that Misha put into the .80 release. So from what I've seen, Lucy has yet to actually officially announce 534.77. I'm sorry, 534.80 is an official release. But if you look on the download page, or if you tell CommandBox start me a 534 version, you will get .80 as the latest stable release of Lucy's. So, in case you're curious, like what the heck is this .80? It's a little release that snuck out. And what's even more interesting is there's still some regressions that were present in the .80 build. So there were 5 more snapshot builds. 85. So 534.85 snapshot is actually the very latest version of 534. But from what I heard, actually just yesterday, Lucy's not planning on making any more stable 534 releases. So if you're on 534 and you're not ready to go to 535, even though I think that might come out in the next week or two, just know that there are some significant bug fixes in the 85 build. The biggest one is a compilation issue where Lucy was needlessly recompiling files and really slowed down applications. Gavin ran into this trying to start up, ORM applications, and it would just take forever to compile everything. Even CommandBox on build 80, if you run the reload command, it would take like 30, 40 seconds. But on build 85, it takes like 5 seconds. So if you're on Lucy 534 and you're on build 80, you might want to test the snapshot build 85. From what I hear, it's not going to be released as stable, but I can confirm it has some major performance improvements. So been a little crazy with Lucy and the 534 releases, but that's the difference between 77, 80, and then the snapshot 85 builds. So that should probably be put in a blog post somewhere.
Yeah,
because I'm sure a lot of people are like, "Wait, what's going on here? I'm so confused." But
isn't
anyway.
the 5.3.4.80 the one that we had ORM issues with too?
Well, yes. So
we don't know where it came in though.
In the nature of one step forward and 2 steps back, there's also been some nasty ORM regressions related to class loading that Sam Knowlton found. But what I'm a little unclear on is exactly what version it started on. Okay. I know that it's present in the 80 build, and he also tested on the latest 535 snapshot. Okay. That ticket has been in Jira for a month. I pointed it out personally to Misha this week and found that he was completely unaware of the ticket. He hadn't even seen it. It was in there marked with the regressions. So hopefully that'll actually get looked at. But I don't know when that regression started. That could have been in for a while, and we just didn't know it. The problem is all of the previous 5.3 versions have had regressions floating around. Sorry. That's what I get for like sleeping in too late this morning. There's been enough regressions that have kept people like Sam Knowlton or even Ortus away from the latest versions of Lucy, and we've been kind of hanging out on 5.2 for a while. So when we finally drag ourselves up to try the latest release and we hit regressions, sometimes we're not sure if they were just introduced or if they've actually been there for a couple versions and we just haven't been tested enough to know them. So, it's a bit iffy. All I can tell you is test a bunch and see if it works. But yeah, I don't know when that ORM bug, the class loading issue, was actually introduced.
Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know either. And obviously, if you're using ORM, be very careful. Test your releases using CommandBox before you publish them to production and break everything. Just a little hint there.
Yep.
Okay.
Charlie, I don't see your comment, but then again, I'm logged into YouTube as myself, not as Ortus, so I don't know if I see the moderations.
I'm gonna add. Well,
you see Charlie's comment, Gavin?
No, I don't see it. I'm trying to find out how to see it.
No, it usually just shows up as a blocked comment. No, when I switch over to log into YouTube as Ortus, Charlie, your comment does not show up. Google has spoken, and they have decided your comment is spam, and nobody should ever know about it, and it should go away, and it should die, and it will never be posted.
Okay, I just added Charlie as a moderator. So Charlie, you're now a moderator.
Google.
Yep, you're now a moderator of our chat, so you should be able to post theoretically. So we will see.
Sorry about that, Charlie.
Yeah, we've been battling it for a while. We apologize. Okay, so back to blog posts, and we have one by Charlie Earhart. And so he's just talking about,
Speaking of Charlie,
the CF Summit East has been canceled. And he said it was obviously sad, but he said that we haven't heard on Twitter or via the website. Well, actually, a post. Sorry. If you visit the Summit website, you'll see this announcement here. So basically, they have canceled it. And he also mentioned that, the certification is being canceled as well, but they are planning to do the developer week. So,
oh, Charlie's link came through.
yay!
Yeah. So there's not going to be any online version of the certification, then, is that correct?
That's what it looks like here. Yeah. So
it sounds like Adobe's going to try to have online versions of the rest of the content, but the certification is just seemingly off the table at this point.
yeah.
All right.
Let's see. And yeah, so basically it talks about the webinar and everything coming up and a few answers, but yeah. So thanks, Charlie, for sharing that, getting that information out there. And the ColdFusion.adobe.com is the portal, and if Adobe doesn't post there, we can, and so a lot of the content there is doing good. So
all right, cool.
okay, so next on the list we have one from Matt Clemente.
Ooh, CommandBox.
So he shared a blog post with a video about adding or passing parameters to commandBox custom commands.
So this is kind of a sequel to his little screencast he did the other day, which was how to create a module that had a custom command in CommandBox. And then here he takes it kind of a step farther and starts building on top of it.
Yep, so pretty cool little video. I watched that the other day too. And talks about different ways to pass them and how it adds, you can add hints and whatever for tab completion. And
yeah, he covered all that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm enjoying his series. I like I like it when other people do series on stuff like that, because I think they have a little bit better perspective. I tend to always try to cover too much content if I do a similar series, because to me, I built it all. I don't know how it works. So I'm like, oh yeah, here's all these advanced features. But Matthew's been doing a great job of just like having the super basic, building blocks that are easy to understand. So I've been loving that series.
Yep. And then next up we have Ben Adele. And so it was Friday the 13th, and he decided that it'd be a good time to work on pixelating an image. And so, as you can see in the little screen share here, he's been working with different pixelation methods. So you see that he's got different pixel radiuses on his pixelation, and goes through using the graphics magic and how you do that. So it's pretty cool. It's funny how, once you blur it a little bit, Lucy does really look like a reindeer with those ears. Lucy's
is that the name of this dog?
Yeah, Lucy.
Lucy.
Pretty sure it's
I'd
Lucy.
like
Now
to
you gotta
think
be
he
able-
named it after Lucy Server, but I doubt that's the case.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. It's more just a little fun task, he said. But again, I'm enjoying the little series.
Nice.
Yep. The next one on the list, since last week we actually had International Women's Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So us at Ortus, we do employ several ladies, women, however you'd like to announce them. But we basically had a blog post so you can meet the amazing woman who coded Ortus Solutions.
But not in person, coronavirus and all, just
Yeah.
online.
So should be safe. But so we asked them a few questions, and so we have several on our team. So Stephanie, Sonia, and Esme are all developers that work with Ortus Solutions. And we have Paulina as well, who's actually wrote the blog post. She's a marketing person that's helping us as well.
Actually, did Paulina interview herself?
No, because she's not a coder, so she only
Missed
interviewed those who
opportunity.
code.
You have to be a coder? Like, what, you're not a coder, you don't count?
Well, yeah,
Like,
it's one of
I'm
those
a
things.
woman, you don't code!
No, but we wanted to show that, because I think we talked about it last week, Brad, about numbers and, women versus men and different.
Yeah, I found a really interesting site that you can search for different job categories, and it had developer and it had UI UX kind of stuff, and it give you a bunch of breakdowns of like nationalities and genders and like just really interesting stuff that showed the breakdown in each deal. The design category did have a higher level of women. It was more like, it was up to like 45% or something programmers was a lot lower. It was more like 30% or something.
Yeah, and
Kind of
so
interesting.
and that's it got me thinking about that too. So, but yeah, I mean they're great, and we really enjoy having them on the team. So,
Yep.
very cool. Okay, and then another blog post here, Ben Adele, and this one was pretty interesting because
More
it talked
graphics
about,
magic.
yep,
It
but
is the graphics magic guys? Are they like sponsoring Ben's series? Because they really should. He's giving them a bunch of free advertising. They need to pay him for it.
yep. So this one's exploring color histograms in graphics magic and Lucy. So it's
And
kind of
this one's
cool,
on
like
Lucy 529.
yeah, with InVision, when you upload a picture, a lot of times they'll make a color palette based on that picture. And so he thinks they use Color Thief to do this, but so he wanted to try it in Graphics Magic and see how it worked. And so basically what it does, it takes a picture and then using some math and everything else.
Some math.
Well, basically it gets all the colors in the picture. And
Like
then
every color, or just like the basic colors kind of rounded down?
well, that's the thing is it gets. I mean, some of these colors are very much the same, and
Oh, I see. Yeah. So
so
it
there's
boils the picture down to like what, 50 colors or something, like the major ones.
yeah, and so it talks about different ways to do it, and like
It's
if you're
actually pretty
creating a
cool.
palette, it usually something like this would basically say, oh, these are the main colors in the image, which sometimes
Yeah.
are too
Like if I was to
close.
paint that image, those are like the basic colors I would need.
Yeah, and so he was talking about how, a lot of the bidder tools actually look for differences between colors to look for, if there's a pink, like here you'd want to use the pink for sure, even though the browns and blues are more prominent. And so you'd actually set it up so it would look at the difference. And the cool thing is that a lot of those other tools like, Color Thief, etc., do that. He decided not to dive into the math to figure that out. So he just did the basics of it.
Oh,
But
come on, Ben. Dive in the math. Dive in the math.
but it was pretty interesting looking through, and like I say, I like just sort of following his flow of thought, and and how he's gonna approach the problem and how to resolve it and everything. Um, yeah, and so basically, it was fun. He decided not to go down that math-based rabbit hole, as he put it, and because a lot of that he
There's
said,
a lot of interesting math and colors. I mean, even just like calculating differences between just like two, hex color numbers or something is. I've only barely touched it a few times. And it's kind of fun,
yeah,
but complicated.
yeah, for sure. So it was pretty interesting. So if you guys got some time on your hands, look through those. I always find them pretty interesting.
Next up on the Ben Show. See, these blog posts are back to Lucy 529. I think
Yeah.
you're totally right. These are things he's playing around with InVision at work, which I think they're running 529, but his personal stuff at home, he was running 534.
Yeah. So in this one here, he's using subtraction to power the array sort comparison operator. Sorry, I blame the influenza. Uh,
Blame the coronavirus.
so yeah, so he was talking about while generating color histograms in Lucy, whatever, he had to sort the array colors based on their frequency within it, and so he used the sort operator to use subtraction. And so, talks about how the sort works, and basically this works a lot the same way for a lot of languages, right? Basically you pass in a function or items in the function, and -1 means it should be sorted before value B, a 0 means they're the same, and a 1 means A should be after value B. And so you have the logic to figure things out. And so he works through it and, takes strings and goes through the sorting algorithm and everything. So kind of interesting. I mean, you have to do this yourself for a lot of languages. Like JavaScript, a lot of times you'll just sort them that way. But we do have some tools in ColdFusion that sort of save us some of the headaches and hassles, right? So we kind of get spoiled.
What? Pro tip, avoid unnecessarily concise code. No, Ben. All closures must use as few characters as possible. That's the Code Wars effect right there. It's like
Well, I mean,
everything's code golf. Even if it's not, it's still code golf.
what's wrong with this? I don't see anything wrong with this. Value.sort, parenthesis, A, comma, B, parenthesis, fat arrow, A.len, less than a B.len. That's actually pretty.
That doesn't bother me, at least now. When I was first getting used to the fat arrow syntax, it confused the heck out of me because I was so used to all the like the nice curlies visually, combining things. I was used to the function keyword. Um, I mean, I'm joking when I say everything has to be concise. I mean, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
like
I like to have as little code as possible, but if I look at it and I can't read it, or my coworkers can't read it, then it's pretty pointless anyway. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like database normalization, right? You normalize it.
till it hurts and you back off a little.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that same works with code golf. Do it till it hurts to look at. And like you say, use your coworkers as a good example. Hey, what does this mean? If they don't know, then either get new coworkers or refactor.
Get new coworkers.
I didn't say
I
that.
always like the quote that says that you have to be more clever to read code than to write code. So if you write code as cleverly as possible, you may not be able to read it yourself.
Yeah,
That is true.
that is true. Okay, so we have another blog post here from Charlie. And here we have multiple upcoming CF webinars and past recordings as well. So we did go through a lot of these webinars. He mentioned that Adobe Developer Week is upcoming, but they haven't put anything yet on that. So he also mentioned the CF Summit recordings that are on the YouTube playlist that we've mentioned several times. So they're in the show notes of previous accounts, and there's links here from this one. Then there's 3 upcoming Adobe webinars, which we mentioned. And also he mentioned that there's other ones coming up here, and this is how you can find out more about Adobe's. But also non-Adobe CF-oriented webinars. And then so here we have the CB Elasticsearch one, and we have the previous recordings here, Teratix YouTube videos, Matt Clemente's series, Michael Bourne's got a series going on here, and then we've got John Farrar's one that we mentioned, Fusion Reactors that we mentioned. So you got a pretty good list here. But he also mentions Fusion Reactor Monitor has YouTube videos from previous live streams, and they have a whole bunch of webinars there as well. CF Camp conference videos are free for attendees and fees for otherwise. And Into the Box conference videos, he says fee. It is free for attendees too, so if you attended last year's, you can get those, because they are free for attendees, and there's a fee for non-attendees. And so also he put it in here about other ways to keep up. He says he does not plan to keep this list updated, and he gave us a plug if you want to keep it, up to date. Listen to the podcast or watch the podcast, because we will try and keep you up to date as much as we can for all the bazillion webinars.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, so it was nice to see a summary like that too. So, and of course, it would have been nice if I saw that before I did all the work to get everything ready. So, yeah.
Right on.
But yep, so thank you, Charlie, for that, as usual. And you posted it to the ColdFusion portal, so a lot more people can see it than the people who listen to this podcast. So next up, we have a blog post from some Brad Wood guy.
Sounds like a jerk.
Yeah.
Those redheads. So this is really just a, what's the word I'm looking for? A wrap up of what we've been talking about in the last couple podcasts, which is the addition of snapshot builds on ForgeBox for Lucy, the addition of Lucy Lite versions on ForgeBox. And when I say ForgeBox, that means so you can start commandBox servers with them. And then the fact that it's all been automated, or as my blog post says, it's automated, baby. So yeah, all new Lucy versions, both full versions and Lucy Lite versions, automatically every day via automation wing their way over to ForgeBox, and you can use them immediately in commandBox. And so we've been talking about it in the podcast, but I typed up this post just to kind of put it all down in writing, to organize it, and just to show very clear examples. For instance, if you want to always run on the latest bleeding edge of Lucy, I show you can say, server start CF engine equals Lucy at BE for bleeding edge. And every time you start your server, you'll get the latest version of Lucy. Also, I have a little note in here about the minor differences between the version numbers that Lucy uses and the version numbers that commandBox uses. Lucy uses a very common Java versioning format that's major.minor.patch.build. So 4 numbers with just periods between them. commandBox and ForgeBox use sort of the NPM flavored semantic versioning, which is major.minor.patch hyphen pre-release plus build, which It's the same basic information, but it's in a slightly different format. So if you want to start Lucy 5.3.4.77 in CommandBox, you ask for 5.3.4 plus 77 because the build number has a plus. Anyway, so I have a couple little notes in there, but just kind of spell out why and how we do our versions slightly differently and what you need to do. And of course, at the end of the day, just use tab completion because CommandBox will tab complete all the version numbers on ForgeBox, and you don't really have to remember any of it. But that's what that post is, just a big overview of all that stuff we've been doing and what it means and how to use it.
Perfect. Cool. Okay, next on the list we have generating color palette using ColdFusion and ImageMagick. So Ben Nadal was using graphics magic, and so James Moberg decided, after reading that he'd compare it with ImageMagick's
It's like the dueling magics.
Yeah, so he talks about the usage, the source code, yeah, and so sort of talked about some of the differences here, which is pretty cool. So, and Ben
Nice.
came across here, and actually tweeted. So they're having their own little conversation. So I thought we'd share that too, so you guys can follow along. So, pretty
Nice.
cool.
And ImageMagick is a tool that you and I have used. Isn't that correct?
In the old days.
In the old days. Were they really that old though?
I don't know. Well,
were they good old days or just old days?
Not sure. So next on our list we have cats.
Finally, it's about stinking time.
Yeah, I need some cats in this pandemic, right? So Ray McCandon, obviously been blogging a lot about Vue lately. He's got these Vue quick shots, which are pretty handy. But this one I thought was perfectly timed. Tips for giving remote presentations. Because right now, we're going to be doing a lot more of those, right?
That's the only kind of presentation that apparently exists right now.
Yep. So it's a cute cat, too. But what he did here... Yeah, so what he did is basically went through and actually got advice from a lot of really important people. So Brian Rinaldi,
I recognize a couple of those names as old ColdFusion names too.
Jim Looper, John Papa, Tracy Lee, Chris Heilman. So there's a lot of really high up people giving a lot of advice on remote presentations. So a lot of it's very similar. So you can learn a few things from this post. And at the end, Ray actually gives his opinion too.
He saves the best for last.
Yep, and so he basically says ditto to what they said, but this. And so he said that apparently using humor is not quite as easy when you've got a crowd that you can't see.
Well, you don't get the feedback loop. I mean, I told that, I get that. That's why when we do our virtual trainings at Ortus, we ask that everybody has a webcam. Just because when you can't see people, you have like no clue if they've fallen asleep or not. It's definitely a lot harder than when you're in a room with them. And typically online webinars, it's not an option to see the room. So I definitely understand what he's saying.
Yeah. So also talked about like Q&A too. A lot of times we ask people to hold the questions to the end, or you have somebody else in the chat so they can, gather the questions up and get them together for you at certain times to check in. And because it's hard to do it at the same time, So I usually recommend don't try and do that. Take times where you'll stop, go check the questions and answer them, because it's definitely hard to present and keep an eye on the chat as you go. Probably like this. This podcast falls apart when we try and do that. So, anyways. So, the next one I thought was pretty good. So, here Ben Nadal is saying, liver is exciting. It's reignited his love for ColdFusion. So, I was really intrigued by this because I'm not sure how, eating different parts of an animal, or I guess person, could make you reignite your love for ColdFusion. But apparently it auto-corrected from Lucy to liver, and the funny thing is here, Lucy is still spelled wrong.
Yeah, he still spelled Lucy wrong.
So I wonder if that
what are you gonna
auto-corrected
do,
the
right?
other way. So
what are you gonna do? Now I don't know if most people know where the name Lucy came from. I think most people probably know that Rilo was the name of a dog in an alien dog in a Star Trek episode. Of course, it was spelled wrong. But anyway, Lucy, Misha Offner, the lead developer in Lucy and Rilo, always says you shouldn't put too much thought into a product name. You should just pick something and just go with it. So Lucy is a sort of a trifecta. He named it after the movie, the Scarlett Johansson movie, I think, where the girl has the drugs that get in her body. She uses like 100% of her brain. Named after an ape, I believe, that maybe did sign language or something. There was some kind of like, monkey ape thing that was named Lucy. And then also there's a famous skeleton of like one of the earliest human remains that was named Lucy. So he combined those three together and then he spelled it differently purely so it would come to the top of Google. because if you Google Lucy spelled normal, you'll come up with everything else in the world. But Lucee wasn't really the name of anything at the time. So he combined those three things that he liked, spelled it different, and boom, that was it. Lucy, that's where it came from.
That's actually pretty smart, especially because you're talking about taking from like prehistoric skeletons to the point where we're like hyped up on drugs and we're really performant and smart.
And we can control things with our mind.
So, I guess that's where we're taking you from like ASP and PHP developers through to ColdFusion developers. Sorry, couldn't resist. Okay, so next on the list we have find a job. So, find a job. We have one job this week, full-time ColdFusion developer at Downers Grove, Illinois. That was posted on March 16th, and so if you want to find out more, you can go to getcfmljobs.com and find out a little more about that and look at other jobs. There's 28 job listings from 21 companies across 20 locations in 5 countries.
How much you want to bet that remote work has an uptick in popularity?
Well, I know a lot of people have been laid off lately and people looking for work on Twitter and everything, so remote work is an option. I mean, obviously, this is going to affect a lot of people in a lot of places. There's government support for those companies with less than 50 people, I believe. There's all sorts of stuff out there.
Oh, this one here, American Access Casualty Company. I know those guys. Luis and I went out and did a ColdBox training with them.
Very cool. So our plan is working. It's spreading like the virus. ColdBox.
I don't know if that's an analogy we want to make. Box products are like coronavirus. It spreads everywhere. Let's not go there.
Well, you already talked about dying. You know, the last living survivor, your family. Hey, I wasn't joking when I was talking about having the influenza A. I really do. I was just glad it wasn't corona.
I'm glad as well.
Okay, so ForgeBox
module of the week. What do we got, Gavin?
So this is one I actually released. It's called the commandBox-stackChecker. And so this is something, it's a CommandBox task runner that I wrote that allows us to put into our build scripts. It does actually sort of follow, I guess, the conventions that Ortus uses when we're building things. So the ForgeBox IO page does talk about that. But I'm probably going to add some pull requests later to be able to change those conventions. But what it does is it basically has 3 different pieces of it. So we have a run local check function. So in your build process, before you build your image, you should basically run this run local check. And so what it does is it runs the stack check function to verify and validate that the stack file in Portainer versus the file in the repo and the environment variables in the .env example all match. So the run local check basically checks your Docker Compose file in your repo to make sure that it has all the environment variables that your .env.example has, and vice versa. So if you added a .env variable to your site, but you forgot to put it in your Docker Compose, it's going to scream at you and tell you, we need this variable, and vice versa. So,
nice. So the impetus for this was basically deployments that were getting out of sync, right? We'd update the stack, but only in one place, to add environment variables, but we wouldn't add them in production.
Exactly. It's hard to keep track of them. Like, you have to remember when this goes out, I've got to go change that variable. I have to add a new variable. I have to remove a variable. And so the running the local check checks it locally. So it checks your Docker Compose file, because in our repos we have a build folder, and inside there we have our Compose file, which essentially we copied and pasted into Portainer, which we use to orchestrate our swarm. And so before we build the image, we'd always check that local file first. Then after you build the image, we run the check remote stack. And so what it does is it uses Portainer. So it logs into your Portainer instance and pulls down your stack. It gets your stack file, which is like your compose file, and it compares those 2 files. It does a diff on the files to see if there's anything different, and then also checks that Docker Compose that's inside Portainer has all the environment variables you need. If it doesn't, or if it's different, then you probably need to put your stack. You need to actually update your stack file in Portainer. And so there's a manual function that allows you to click a button and says put stack, and the put stack will actually connect to Portainer via the API and upload your Docker Compose file from your local files into Portainer and update the service. And so these 3 functions just help make sure that your Docker Compose in your repo and your Portainer and all your environment variables are all matched up and synced. So it allows you to push them out in the right order. So pretty handy. We're liking the use of it already. The examples I used using GitLab, but they translate pretty well to most build processes there. It is
Do you
using
have to be using
Portainer.
Portainer to use it?
Well, without it, you could probably run the local check because it doesn't touch Portainer for that. But the remote check and the putting the stack uses Portainer to deploy. But you could definitely use it for the around local check. And like I say, right now it assumes that you're based on your environment, the file is in a certain place. So we can make a pull request to update that, or I can update that later. So, but little command box helper. So in your build script, you can just basically install the module, run it, passing in your environment variables you need for, your Portainer username and password for the API call, etc. And it'll do it for you. So it's definitely a nice addition to it. We're enjoying it. It's pretty cool. So I like it. Hopefully you guys do too. And let me just pull that up here just so you can see. I did try to document it. Luis was so proud. so here
Luis
we have
loves
assumptions.
some documentation, man.
Yeah, so this is the assumption of where your Docker Compose for your environment will be. And we talked about how to call this task runner. So you need the environment, the stack ID, which Portainer uses, and then the Portainer information here. So it tells you what all these are and what they mean, and talks about the different methods. So usually this is the stages we have in our build. So we run our tests, and then we do the local stack check. Then we build the image, and then we run the remote stack check and put the file if we need to. Then we deploy the image, and then sometimes we'll do after deployment tests on staging, and then we'll build all our artifacts and everything. So we have the YAML file here, so give you an example of what you do. So you can cd build and then install it, and then go back. So we usually build it in the build folder, so that way it's not a dependency you'll actually deploy, because we delete the build folder. And so there's different steps there. So yep. So I'll go update those as well. But yeah, working pretty nice. So you guys should check it out. Okay, so next on our list, we have our VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. And so this one is actually one called BookMarks, and John Farrar actually recommended this one. Pushed the wrong button, almost had the outro. Alessandro Fragnani.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so basically it allows you to bookmark your code. So what you can do is just tag your code, and it gives you all the ability to jump to previous, next, or list all from the files. And then you also have the ability to do a sidebar. So they have sidebars in your...
So do the bookmarks have names? How exactly are you bookmarking it?
You just tag it. So it's kind of like maybe a breakpoint you'd use, a debugger. You can set it for a line number, and then it shows what's on that code as part of that. And so you can just select the line, bookmark it, and then you have all the functions to navigate through them, etc. There's all these different settings, but the sidebar is pretty cool because then you can see all the bookmarks for different things. So if you're working on a few different pieces and you jump around a lot, it just allows you to quickly jump between different parts of the code. So maybe it's not a function where you can use some of the functionality for jumping from function to function. Maybe it's just some bookmarks of certain pieces you need to fix. We use to-dos for some of this stuff, which is kind of nice, but the bookmarks is kind of a nice way to, if you're in the middle of something, to be able to jump between them, especially when it shows the Explorer has the files and which bookmarks are in the files too. So
interesting,
pretty neat, and it has I think almost 749,770 installs, 5 stars. So pretty cool little
10 out of 10 would install.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep, very cool. Okay, so last on our list is our Patreon supporters. We got a good number of Patreon supporters here, so thank you everybody for supporting this podcast and making it possible, and also supporting our other tools like commandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContentBox, TestBox, etc. Hopefully, like I said, we're trying to step up our Patreon support here, so if you guys are able to support us and all the things we do, please go to patreon.com/ordersolutions and find a package that works for you. So we'd appreciate all the help we can get there. as I said, Ortus is funding the majority of this podcast still. Would like to, try and get the community behind it. If you guys are finding it valuable, please consider helping us out. So, Brad, I think it's your turn to go through the names.
It was my turn last time. It was my turn.
Yeah, it's usually the way it is. With you and Eric switching out, it's either like you guys do it and I never do it, or
yeah,
or I do it all the time.
We have to like draw straws.
Yeah.
All right. So big thanks to Andrew Davis, Brian White, Carl von Stetten, Da Lee, Dan Carr, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Didier Lesnicki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, John Farrar, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamory, Laskma Chirhadadi, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hangen, Richard Herbert, Samuel Knowlton, Scott Steinbeck, VJ, and Yogesh Mathur. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to look up one more thing because I think we just had another person subscribe.
I thought we did, but I lose track of who we have.
Yeah, I'm not an admin on the Patreon team, so I don't know, but I think we had somebody. New addition? Katie Holmes from Outlet Trade. So maybe
that name sounds familiar, Katie Holmes.
Yeah, so that's someone not on our list. So
there you go.
I just got that message while we're on the podcast. So
21 patrons.
Yeah, so we have an extra one now. So thank you, everybody.
Patreon says we're 4,000% complete.
Yeah, that's what I just saw too, and that confused me.
That's right. All right, guys, we don't need any more. We're 4,000% complete. Thanks.
I think it's 40% complete because Katie would be the.
There's got to be
40%.
some math problems going on here at Patreon today.
Yeah, I think it's 40%, not 4,000 complete. So we're not overfunded. It has a
progress bar that's about 40% of the way, but it says 40.
I wonder if that's a Patreon bug, not an Ortus bug.
I don't know. It might be a Patreon bug. Like someone left like a times 100 in the code,
Yeah, because you're right. That does look 40% across. That is pretty crazy. I bet it is. I bet there's a calculation issue there because that bar is definitely 40%. I'm actually inspecting the code right now.
Was it JavaScript that does it?
I'm just looking to see how it's calculated. Yeah, width is 40%. Yes, so Patreon has a bug. So, but we do appreciate.
Do we get like a bug bounty for this?
I don't know. We should, because that's pretty bad. Now everybody looks like they're 100 times overfunded. Pretty bad.
Oh my gosh! All right, well,
everybody stay safe, stay healthy. Try and survive.
Stay indoors, apparently.
Stay indoors. Survive your kids.
Actually, outdoors is supposed to be really good. I've heard UV rays kill most viruses as long as nobody else is outdoors with you or something.
Yeah, within 6 feet where they could breathe and sneeze on you. Yeah. But actually, just before we go, because I found this interesting, because one of the companies I work with is a safety company. So we went through their safety training on Corona. And one of the things is a lot of people using Clorox wipes to disinfect. Mm-hmm. But if you look on the packaging for Clorox wipes, the Clorox wipes are only effective against killing bacteria like the virus if when you wipe, it stays visibly wet for 4 seconds. So if it evaporates faster than that, it did not do the job. And so certain wipes have a 2 second, but most Clorox wipes have to be visibly wet for 4 seconds for it to be actually working and doing its job.
Oh, wow.
So there's actually a list of disinfectants and their times and effectiveness and which ones are recommended, etc., available from the CDC. But yeah, so if you read the packaging on your stuff...
I never even knew that was a thing. That's hilarious.
Me neither, so I thought I would share it. Hopefully everybody doesn't freak out about it, but I know that we had snow in the area last night, and so all the trucks got stuck, and so everybody freaked out a little more. So, yep, good time. So everyone, protect your toilet paper, and have a great week.
All right, bye-bye, guys.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.Die.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.